Okay, does this work with the light?
Hey y'all, okay, thank you for tuning in if you're watching this right now. My name is Lucas Zhao, and today's video, or this evening's video, that's supposed to be technically correct, I digress. Hey guys, so tonight's video is I will be talking about a topic a friend and I were kind of joking about the other day on the phone, sort of this concept of super racist Shanti Farms. And that is sort of playing off the white supremacy and the racism that is embedded into a lot of the modern New Age spirituality, especially in North America, the United States of America, and the hippie cultural movements, and especially pertaining to marijuana farms and the industry surrounding that in California, Oregon, Washington, all of that fun stuff. So yeah, we're gonna dive right into it. Okay, and I guess another thing as well, this video in particular is sort of focusing upon, the experience and the perception of New Age spirituality and the psychedelic scene and the psychedelic awakening, sort of through the eyes of a first generation born immigrant, Chinese American, and a person of color, a person of culture. And having lived on the road for so many years and having traveled and traversed and begun to calculate or articulate a more coherent map of the landscape geographically and socially and culturally as well. So touching upon that and sort of, my perception of it, and this video will be intended for those individuals who may have felt or intuitively picked up certain things about modern New Ageism and spirituality, and just all of that hippy dippy love and light, which is great too. You know what I mean? It's better that than war and genocide. But ultimately speaking, so we're gonna just have some fun, tear it apart, and chop it up. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of free form idea spit this as I tend to do is my style. Both in videos and life. I guess how they say how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I guess this remains true for me in this moment. So one of the big things that I feel like I really wanted to talk about and touch upon in this being that token point of diversity oftentimes within these music festivals or the psychedelic art scene, the visionary art scene and everything of that nature, which is extremely white and it's extremely privileged as well. And I really want to touch upon that and really speak upon that as well from my own personal perspective, because in my conversations, in my experiences, I've spoken with a lot of people that also feel this type of discrepancy between what is being perpetuated and what's being spoken about from what's actually going on. So a big part of it, is really sort of seeing from the beginning, I guess, for myself, and having lived and sort of ridden on this archetypical mold, the stereotype of Asian and Buddhism and Zen and peace and all that good stuff, which is dope. But as I grew and unfolded more upon my journey in this life and in this world, particularly the Western world in the United States of America, and the Western culture, is the more that I saw the blatant, I don't even want to call it appropriation. As of right now, it is appropriation, but as of right now, I'm just going to use the word to borrow. And the borrowing of these Eastern ideologies and the wisdom and the teachings and sort of, using it in a way and capitalizing off of it and exploiting it and sort of never, that is one thing. But then again, on top of these spiritual, compassionate, holistic, humanitarian, holistic teachings, to not truly acknowledge the cultures of which those teachings and beliefs and wisdom is appropriated from. And that's something for myself as a Chinese American born here in the United States of America was sort of just brought into the perception of in a gaslighting sort of way. And that's one of the reasons why I feel so called and drawn to make this video and sort of like speak upon it and to open that dialogue and the narrative of processing this, because I know 100% that I'm not the only person who feels this way, and I'm probably not only the like the person of color or any human in general, to sense these sort of the shadow side and the bypassing that is really inherent in a lot of this New Ageism, and a lot of it too is I can see why some people don't enjoy to use the word toxic, but negative masculinity or an entire lack thereof of true masculinity. And that's where it becomes more dangerous, I feel, is when people are consuming something thinking that it is a medicine when it's actually a poison. And that's when the deception starts to become more of a factor within the process, the collective, and that fear of the other within oneself, and all of that chaos and all of that uncomfortable pizzazz, So yeah, I feel kind of digressed there. And another one of the reasons that I feel really propelled and magnetized to make this video right now and to speak upon these things at this moment in time is because with all of this, activation, these obstacles, these collective initiations, sort of the ritual rite of passage that our culture is sort of confronting right now through COVID and through Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and everything, Breonna Taylor, everything that's been sparked and catalyzed, and even that shooting in Kenosha as well, which was the most recent one that I'm aware of, and there were some last night as well in Louisville, where the Breonna Taylor ruling was just utterly whack for anybody that isn't just an old straight white male. But I digress. And through these activations and the catalysts and the obstacles that we're sort of facing collectively, I've been seeing how a lot of my white friends that are deeply, truly well-intentioned humans, and humans with big hearts, with pure hearts, just like all of us, and we don't choose, how we're born or where we're born or who we're born into, and families and culturally and all these things, and sort of seeing the cognitive dissonance and the biases that they have to navigate through in order to be at peace with what's going on right now. And it's really interesting because, from one of the things that I've been seeing, I suppose, and just kind of hearing about, is that the sort of the gap, the widening gap within that spiritual, new age, hippie community and that movement from, one being community-based, permaculture, taking care of oneself and one's neighbors, and opening up this really massive divide into racism, into alt-right, basically fascism, more white supremacy, more bypassing, anti-trans, anti-anything, everything that it preaches. So it's really interesting, and I can see why, for some of my friends that are more white passing, or would identify as white, or receive the privileges and the benefits of that, what I mean, life and those biological assignments in the society and all that good stuff. But it's challenging for them because of their proximity to this white spirituality and this white new ageism. And it's interesting just because for myself, my whole time on the road, this was something that I silently had to harness and refine myself, and could only really process in a cipher of my friends of color, truly, and the people that I would meet on the road as well, that were parallel or congruent to that path as well, that path of awakening and that path of compassion, and to understand all of our brothers and sisters and who we are in juxtaposition to that. So it's interesting because I myself have always felt, I myself have always felt some severe level of segregation and sort of imposed white supremacy, therefore racism, always in this like spiritual new age scene, from music festivals to, it really coming down to me being the token diversity. And when people are saying it's like, oh, things are diverse, it's like me and like the Mexican people that are vending, or like that one other black woman, or that one other Asian person who is at an all-white event having, I can break that down more, and I'll try to right now real quick, just, being born in closer proximity to the colonizer privilege in some sense. And that's, that's a sad excuse for diversity. And having myself needing to metabolize this experience emotionally and physically and mentally, sort of, allowing myself to grow these walls and these barriers and these sort of these boundaries with the spiritual new ageism and that whole love and light reality. Or I don't know, it's interesting because it's so disconnected from reality. I don't even know if I could call it that. But so yeah, I think it's very fascinating to me because right now there is sort of like that rapture. There are many raptures, but there's one occurring right now, and this sort of seems to be the topic that I'm talking about, the super racist Shanti Farms. And it's interesting just because like I know a lot of my friends feel this way, especially people of color, especially people that are people of color within these scenes. And not because like they choose, you know what I mean? Like we just like what we like. So we magnetize and we gravitate towards what we gravitate towards. And that's really beautiful. And I think that sort of is like the planting of seeds as well, sort of how that naturally happens. Feel like divine intention, divine design, divine architecture, something of that nature. But yeah, so there's a lot to unpack, but I think that the more we talk about this and we open up this space for communication about these, what we feel and these realities and these dynamics, the more less it is to unpack, the more less it is to unpack, the less more it is to unpack. And, it sort of just becomes transmutation and transformation as soon as it hits the air, and we can really percolate and metabolize and really just communicate, about what it is that's going on and what we're feeling about what's going on. So some of the things that, I've been seeing that really stir up that discomfort within myself on an ethnic level or on a cultural level in this country is sort of seeing the whitewashedness of these teachings and sort of how they're taught and brought to the United States and whitewashed and appropriated and then sort of almost molded to fit the historical white cognitive biases and the psychological biases and the historical anthropological biases of dominance. And, like things such as Kundalini or the Tao or a lot of Eastern medicine and ideologies being taught just by white people, and really having white people become the figurehead of a lot of these ideas or these topics or these cultures or these beliefs, practices of wisdom that, I don't want to say it belongs to the people that it came from, but it kind of does, and those people are that true culture, that true spirituality still. It is inherent to their existence. So for white people or colonizers, I guess it doesn't just have to be white people, but historically speaking, white people have been the most guilty of what I'm speaking about is, just that blatant appropriation and then exploitation and capitalization off of, these ideas, these practices, and these teachings. So, I feel as if it's important, if I'm going to present a problem, to present a solution as well. And one of the things that I feel very, inclined to mention right now or to say is that I truly feel as if we should, be inspired by all cultures and connect with what we connect with. But ultimately speaking, we have to understand who we are and where we come from. And even in European countries, in the western side of Eurasia, there are, to my knowledge, over 200 languages of the indigenous people. That is not Spanish, Italian, French, English, or anything of that nature, or Portuguese. And it is of the native peoples of Europe, the tribes of Europe, the indigenous people, just like we all are to our land. And those languages are under the threat of erasure through colonialism. And you know what I mean? Just like a increasingly industrialized system of society and culture in some sense. So, we have roots that we can go back to. We all have roots that we can go back to, and we all have roots that we can learn from. Because a lot of what our roots really are, a lot of what's taught to us, isn't who we truly are. And just like for every single culture, if you want to learn about yourself, you have to look for it. You have to actively be hungry and seek that information. So I really encourage all of my, for whoever is watching this, my white European friends or anything of that nature, to dive in and to really research and to try to and read between the lines as well of their own personal experiences, of their own personal genetic activations with the information that they're receiving about the people that are indigenous as well or native to their original homelands or land masses. And I think that the more that we learn about this ourselves, our own personal identities, the more that we can truly see how connected and how collective we truly are. And we don't have to try to mimic the culture of another person without being able to absorb or even to recognize the true substance or the essence behind another culture or another individual, because if an individual is devoid or lacking in that space within themselves, how could they recognize that in another? So yeah, so super racist Shanti Farms. This is what's going down 2K20. I guess not anymore after this video, but it's a thing. And I definitely want to make this video as well for my fellow people of color that like navigate those environments, you know what I mean? And go to like a pot farm in California that all their white friends are saying is like the coolest thing in the world. And like you get up there and there's no cell phone service, and all of a sudden it feels like the movie Get Out. And you're like, yo, like who's gonna have a racist attack and just try killing me, you know what I mean? And like I know I'm not the only person that has felt that way, and felt that, and then learned about historical anecdotes which actually fit that, like the lynching of Chinese people after they were taken and worked as slaves in the gold mines in California from the Pacific Rim when they came to the United States from China to be shrimp fishermen, but lost track, and then were just put to work on railroads and mines and everything of that nature, and then lynched, you know what I mean, after that. So you won't read about that in history books, but I mean you might, because they're still writing them. But it's interesting to really learn about what we already know in some sense through our intuition. And I really want to open this dialogue to all my friends and all of my seekers as well, of all backgrounds, to really just open up space for this conversation, because we are all in it together, and that's another thing too. It's like a lot of that like hippy dippy new age spirituality, that love and light stuff, it's not wrong, you know what I mean? It's not wrong. What they're teaching and what they're saying and what they're implying is not in itself wrong. It's more so the way that it's applied and the method and the culture, the historical cultural practices and the patterns of which it is applied through, and sort of how even spirituality, it has become its own superiority and has become its own dogma. And I think that that's something that is common amongst all humans on some level, but is rampant in the Western mind. So yeah, let's talk. Let's open this up. Dope. Super Racist Shanti Farms video. Beautiful evening, sirens all around me. New York City and Bryant Park. Thank you for joining me. And hit subscribe, I guess, or something like that. That's what these people say on YouTube. I'm just trying to get into it more. I'm trying to like preserve these thoughts and ideas before I can, So cheers, bless up, and I love you all. Peace. I know a lot of my videos are kind of long. It just kind of turns into me rambling. So I'm gonna try to make this one a little bit shorter. And if any of you guys have any questions or have any concerns or your own personal experiences to this white new age hippie spirituality, please comment below or message me, because this is very important for us to talk about. We are sort of entering a new age where we are all individually, through our individual perspectives and experiences, becoming active participants within the collective global culture that is emerging. And it's all a part. We're becoming the archetypes of the mythology that we learn from, and beginning to truly understand what that means, I feel, So, yep.